Welcome to Between Two Chairs, Demystifying Commercial Real Estate, the podcast that brings you the latest insights and trends on the South Florida commercial real estate market, with your hosts, Fernando Arencibia Jr. and Jennifer Woolman. In each episode, we dive into the world of commercial real estate and break down complex concepts to make them accessible for everyone. Whether you're a real estate professional, a curious investor, or just interested in the South Florida market in general, Between Two Chairs is the podcast for you. So pull up a chair and join us.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Between Two Chairs. It is a very, very special episode for so many reasons. But before we get started, again, my name is Fernando Arencibia Jr. Thank you for joining us. And with me is the very cold. I'm saying she's just cold. It's a cold room. I'm not saying that she's cold. I'm just saying she's cold. Jennifer Woolman. Jennifer, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm always freezing. So if you see me do a little jerk or spaz, it's because it's cold in here today. We live in South Florida, but it's freezing at all times. So we're Jennifer, super excited.
Yes, please. Let's, without further ado, introduce our guest today.
So in line with this month's theme of the impact of movies and film production and radio production and photography on Miami and its impact on the commercial real estate market in South Florida, we decided to wrap up our month focusing on Instagram, known as IG, and with a very important guest also, IHG, right? Ines Hegedus Garcia, Miss Miamism. She is not only Miss Miamism, she is the executive vice president of Avanti Way Realty, past chairman of the board. So we're kind of between three chairs today.
There you go.
Past chairman of the board of Miami Realtors, and she is the brains and the brawn behind Miamism. The Miamism brand, which focuses on architecturally significant real estate and everything South Florida lifestyle. She's a beautiful photographer and an even more beautiful person. So today with us is Ines Hegedus Garcia.
Wow, I couldn't have sold myself better, Jennifer. Thank you for that. Can I take you on the road with me?
So I want you to hold up your Miamism. We have our Veuve Clicquot Miami bottle or Miami case, and being the brand ambassador for Miamism that she is, she one-upped it with the Miamism. Nice. I love it. I love it.
That's awesome.
So Instagram is huge in residential real estate. I mean, it's huge, period, but it's very, very popular with residential realtors and apparently a lot of the general public. You know me in social media. Can you speak a little bit about the appeal of Instagram to you as a marketing and branding tool?
So the gram is special. And it was funny. I think that the reason it's special to me is because it's very visual. And being an architect by training, anything that's visual obviously is going to be attractive to me personally. I just work well with visual stuff. Now, I do have to tell you that as an early adopter to social media, when I started with Instagram, it was really crazy because to me it was a time suck because I wasn't getting results. There was no ROI. There was no business coming out of the gram. It was just, I just loved doing beautiful photos, showing Miami lifestyle, just making sure that, those photos were great. The gallery, it was just so great. And there was one time that I considered, let me get off this because I'm not making any money off it. There's absolutely no ROI, but I absolutely spent so many hours. Thank goodness. Algorithms and people change and things evolve. If we look at all the social media platforms, they've all evolved quite a bit in the last 15, 20 years. So I started getting a lot of business from it. Now, I do things a little bit differently because Instagram to me is beautiful photos and telling a story a different way. So when you look at my Instagram, you're never going to see just sold, just listed, Anything that is my daily life goes in my stories because it disappears in 24 hours. So that's what I always recommend. And then making sure that your gallery always has not a pattern, but follows some sort of logic of what you're selling, who you are, who you're representing. So identifying an audience, I talk to you guys about this all the time, is key. So I think realtors make a mistake, and I think in every industry, of not identifying who is that audience and what do I need to post that's going to attract their attention, and what value will I bring by whatever post I put up, and then constantly study, the results that you get from it. If you look at my early days of Instagram, I had no photos of me. It was all Miami. Everything I put was Miami, and that was working. And I would study the historic posts, would get a lot of hits, and it wasn't just likes, it was engagement. My architecture posts would get huge engagement. Now I have to put more photos of me, because the photos of me in action, in leadership, in an event are getting a lot more engagement than the Miami or the architecture ones. So studying what you're doing and changing and making tweaks as you go is always very important.
Why do you think that is? That's an interesting dynamic, because I've noticed that as well, that sometimes when I put a picture of something that I find to be interesting, or a significant building, or something that really is about Miami or a building in Miami, that it doesn't get as much attention as when I'm in the picture, or there are other people in the picture. Why do you think that has changed? I'm interested in your take. I have a theory, but I would love to hear yours.
So I don't think it has changed. I think your audience changes, right? So you guys, as having been chairman of the board for Miami Realtors, then all of a sudden you have more realtor eyes on you, and it may not be the consumer per se. So when that audience changes, and that's what you need to tweak and identify, then all of a sudden it's like, is it a recruiting thing? Is it people interested in what you're doing? Is it a different type of respect from the industry that you have acquired, and now they want to hear what you have to say? So I think for me, that's what has happened, without a doubt. But I still continue, for example, for me to see art across Miami and no one knows who the artist is, breaks my heart. Or who the developer is in a great building, but you don't know who the architect is. So you're always going to see my posts, like Miami Design District is one of them. I'll do like a picture of one of the art exhibits, and I'll write about the artist. And to me, it's educating the consumer at the same time, even if those posts are not getting the engagement or the traffic. I know in the analytics in the back, at least someone went, "Oh my God, I didn't know that," or whatever it is. So it's a nice balance. So I don't know if you agree with me, Fernando, but that's my take.
I think you're absolutely right. I think also what happens is that we're getting to a point, so this is my theory, we're getting to a point where a lot of those pictures have become more commonplace, right? Because as engagement, or the number of people that are in IG and in all the social media platforms has increased, they're posting, so like if you look at a place like Brickell City Center, of which you've taken amazing pictures of certain angles and certain looks in Brickell City Center, but there's a lot of those pictures, right? But when you're in the picture, right, then it becomes much more personal. It becomes much more, to your point, specific to your audience, right? And so it makes it special that you're in the picture and you're interacting with the environment that you're highlighting, rather than just showing the environment, because to a certain degree it becomes commonplace. Because if everybody takes the same picture, then what's differentiating the picture is definitely the perspective of the photographer, which you have an amazing perspective. But when you're in the picture and you're part of that, and by the way, I gotta give a lot of credit to Rick, your husband, who, I've seen you giving him direction and taking great pictures. So, credit where credit is due to my boy Rick. But I think that's a part of it. It's just that, people want to feel connected, and it's hard to connect with an inanimate object. It's easier to connect when there is you kind of become the tunnel or the vehicle that connects the person to the experience.
Yeah, I'll give you a beautiful exercise, which I've done. You can do, you grab Brickell City Center. So Brickell City Center has a few really Instagrammable places, right? And so I'll do a photo of me, and then you can actually do several photos, right? In that same post. And then start with a photo of me with the background, and then the next one will be the background without the photo of me, and see which one gets the most engagement, likes, or hits. And then, wow, the first photo may need to be the photo of me or not, and at the end of the day, you need to do that A/B testing, and I do that with marketing all over the place. I tested a Facebook ad a bit ago where I did Rick and I in front of the property we were selling, and I spent the same amount of money. The ads were exact. The photo was different. There was the property, and then the other one was the property with I superimposed the photo of both of us as the agents. And the one without me got 300% more traffic and results. So then I said, okay, no more photos of me as an agent, that typical across the whatever. So I stopped doing that to sell real estate. But what are we selling at the same point? When we're in leadership, people are paying attention to us. So it's a little bit different because they want to hear what we have to say. They want to learn how we got there. So it's a little bit different in what we're doing. So we have all eyes on us, 3 chairs.
So I think to your point, it's the audience. And when you're talking about putting yourself in the picture, so for me, it's always like, well, it's not about me. What do the people want to see? And in reality, I don't know. I post for me. Like I'm admittedly horrible with social media. Instagram is where I put stuff of my family or something I like. I mean, Ines, my favorite picture of you and I is you still trying to teach me how to do a selfie up in Florida. Worst pictures ever, but I love them because talk about being authentic. I'm sorry, people, if you ask me to take a picture, chances are I'm going to chop off one of your body parts, your head, your feet, your ankles. You're going to be out of focus, whatever. So anyway, so for me, the thought of taking pictures of me and posting them on Instagram, like I would just never go there, right? Like I'll let other people post pictures of me on Instagram, right? Like if I'm with my family or my kids and they put it in a story, I'll re-story it or whatever. But I just don't see me standing in front of a property, or to your point, if I'm selling the property, I don't want to be in front of the property, but in front of anything. Because to me, the value is in what I'm seeing, right? I'm relaying, okay, this is why I like this building, or this is what I love about Miami, or this is what I love about whatever it is that I'm taking a picture of. So I think it's really interesting, and it takes me back to the Bruce thing that Bruce Turkel that I always talk about. It's always all about them. So for me, if I'm thinking of my audience, I'm like, why would they want to see me, right? What's interesting about me? Why would I post about me? So I think it's super interesting that the engagement that you're getting is based on you, And
you know what's crazy? When the brand was born, Miamism, the whole idea behind that brand was an ism is a philosophy, a way of life, right? So it was Miami's way of life. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about Rick. So our business card didn't even have our photo. We didn't want our photo anywhere, and the whole concept then, if I look back over 19 years ago, it was, we're going to sell this brand. It's going to be sellable. It's not going to have my name. It's not going to have my face. So I want to create a really strong personal brand, although we're calling it personal, that I can sell later, because my product is Miami. That's what I'm selling. It's not me. So that was the whole concept of documenting Miami at a different level, from an architect's eye, with different beautiful photos, and trying to get it, with Fernando's point, a different perspective that people haven't seen somewhere else. And it was fun, the isms that we were taking photos, the only in Miami photos were a lot of fun. And we had every Friday we would post a Miamism Friday, and it was just a lot of fun just to think of things differently. Now, for those that are listening here, it doesn't mean don't put a photo of you. You really need to test it. What are those results, and what are you selling, and what is your ultimate goal from the post that you just put up? So always be very intentional on everything that you're doing and posting. And deleting stuff is not a bad thing. I used to cringe, I don't want to delete something. And then I realized, no, the message was not really clear. I didn't obtain the goal that I had in mind wasn't quite there. And I delete posts.
You mentioned something that I think is very important, which is it was fun. It is fun, right? And I think people sometimes forget to just show their personality and have fun and enjoy it. You're the youngest OG in the game, right? Because you've been doing it, you were an early adopter. I remember, and we've bonded over this. You were one of my first follows in Twitter when Twitter first started. And what I remember most about Miamism was the Mojito reviews, and I thought that was a great approach because it was interesting. You were showcasing, a great restaurant. It's an experience. It's something very, very specific to Miami. It's part of us and our culture. And can you tell me a little bit about what are the things that really haven't changed about interacting with an audience through this medium, and what are the things that have markedly changed?
So I think that the part that people are getting wrong is social media. There's a social aspect to what we're supposed to be doing in all social media platforms. So as much as content creation became a thing, and there's all these content creators in every which way possible that you look, you can hire someone, you can be an amazing content creator, but if you don't give back, if you don't engage, if you don't activate the social aspect, and it's not just commenting on your own or saying thank you to anyone that comments on your stuff, you need to go to other platforms. You need to reciprocate the love. And if you're getting no love, you need to start somewhere. So I think that has not changed. You need to go out into other accounts. You need to, comment, just make sure and be authentic about it. And I know there's all kinds of bots. There's bots where you can buy likes. There's bots where you can comment, and you can see that they're not authentic. So just be very, very careful on who you hire and what you're doing, so it represents your brand. And that's another thing that's become crazy, is because there's just so many companies doing social media for people. They're not double checking that the representation of these companies is them, right? So that's a huge change that has happened. You can tell who's not authentic. You can tell when you get an automated reply constantly. So the whole world of automation and making yourself more efficient by hiring someone, which is, I really recommend, if you don't do social media, hire. But my recommendation is always, number one, make sure that company you're hiring is also doing some engagement, because engagement to me is so much more than content creation. And the other part, that it represents you. Whatever they're saying, how they're communicating represents you and your brand and who you are. So that's really key.
Well, and I think also peppering it with your own posts. So even though you hire a professional media person, I think no matter how much they get you, there's a flavor there that you can tell that it's a company, right? And with AI, I think that's becoming more so. But I've got to tell you 2 great examples of social media that were done with AI. One, I love your cheap residences that you did for April Fools. Anybody who hasn't seen this, oh my God, new development. I was reading that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this building. I'm looking, and then I get down, and I'm not going to give away the punchline, but I loved your Jeep residence, and I could tell that had an AI aspect, but I could tell that you were the brains behind that, right? So it wasn't just AI kind of going out there, and I don't know, maybe you 100% posted without doing any
oh my God, are you crazy?
Yeah, no, I know you better. But so that's one, and then another one that was...
Whoa, but before you move on,
yeah.
listen, that might have been an April Fool's, but I already contacted Fiat.
Yeah.
And, we're having conversations. I'm letting you know right now. That shit looks so good. We got to make it happen.
It did. It was amazing. I'm like, oh my God, finally a building that really reflects my Miami.
For normal Miamians.
Yes, for real Miamis. Not, even though I can't say I've been here 30 something years, but I wasn't born here. Miami, so, but anyway, and then another one that, another person we interviewed, her name was Delee Becker, and she did a post, and I guess you have to put in your personality, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that works, because this post came out with her cowgirl. She's from Austin, Texas, and it sounded like her, but better, right? And so I'm curious with the AI, because this AI got her so well based on her descriptions, and I think the same thing happened with the Jeep. Like, to me, the whole time I'm reading that, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know she used AI, but it was so Ines. It was so Miamism that there was no doubt that it was you behind it and not a company. Exactly. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you managed to use AI successfully while still maintaining your voice.
So AI is my best friend. It just makes me happy. It puts a smile on my face. It makes you efficient. It just makes you better. It's so awesome. Now, with that said, you have a massive responsibility. So I can tell you that because I've been blogging for 20 years, I can tell AI, scrape Miamism and write in Miamism's voice. Every post that I've written in Miamism has been me. So my voice is there, and it's conversational. So that's why it's a little bit easier for AI to pick on that voice. So I say write in Miamism's voice, and I give it a really, really heavy description. And then you have to go back and redo and re-edit and make sure that things sound correct, and then post what it gives you, and you correct it and post it back and ask it to edit it the way that you want. So it's hours of work. Just because I used AI, it doesn't mean it did it for me. And I'm not going to get into the ugly part of AI, which is your copyrights. I have copyrights on Miamism and my content, and it just so happens that if content is not created by a human, you lose your copyrights. So now at the federal level, there's all kinds of lawsuits on, what percentage needs to be edited for it to be copyrightable. Because if AI creates it and it's a bot, then obviously there's no human involved. So what percentage of human involvement needs to be created? And that there's no answer for that quite yet, but there's tons of lawsuits right now. So we'll get there, which makes it's exciting for me as a content creator to know that, I will have rights. And with that said, you also have to be very careful what you ask it to change, because then are you losing your rights to AI? But that's a completely different conversation. But the graphics that I created with Jeep, with that one with the AI, completely created with ChatGPT, by the way. I didn't even go to Midjourney. The beauty of you have to create them all at once, because there's no reiterations. If you can't post and say, okay, grab that same image and create one with this tweak. So that doesn't happen. That's a little bit more difficult. So I need a common area. I need a lobby space. I need the facade and a gym. And I separate and describe everyone's really, really well. And I don't want any cars inside, because that's what it was giving me. It was giving me a lot of Jeeps inside the spaces. And the final product, after hours of tweaking and playing with it, was fantastic. And it was funny because I wanted to post it right away because I was so excited about it. And April 1st was a couple of weeks away, so I had to wait. So Rick was like, don't post it. You know you want to. But by the way, that idea, I have to give Rick credit. Okay. So not only is he a Jeep guy, what happened there was we have Aston Martin, we have Porsche, we have Pagani, we have, Bentley, and I'm forgetting, Mercedes-Benz just launched. So we have 5 luxury car brands of buildings in Miami. And so Rick goes, and the regular Miamian and the regular people, like why can't I have a Jeep building? And I was like, oh, this is glorious. you just gave me the best idea. So credit to Rick.
That's awesome.
And and a real Miamism would be a chatarra. Chatarra building. I don't know where we'd put it, but yeah, that's the one where the blinkers don't work and the muffler falls off. Breaks down on US 1 right at rush hour time. So residential agents are awesome at social media and marketing. What makes a property, if you were speaking to a commercial agent, and I know you have experience with commercial as well, what would you get them to do? There are a handful of agents that are really good at social media, but the majority of commercial agents and or landlords don't really put a lot out there on social media. I mean, part of it is just because of who they are, but another part is just not knowing and not being as open to the overall public as residential real estate tends to be.
So I'll tell you what, because it's not done a lot, I think there's a whole world of opportunity to get into this. And as you know, like we've sold a number of commercial buildings, and Rick actually does more commercial. He does commercial, and I would do residential. So I think, again, it's an audience thing. You know, who's buying these buildings? How can you do things differently? And you know, it's retail. You guys talk about asset classes. So who is the buyer for that asset class, and who's the client for that asset class? Because now you have two audiences, right? Is it a rental building? Who's going to be interested in occupying the building? And if it's an investor, what is that investor looking at? Who occupies that building? So putting that world together on commercial properties, I think it's not only challenging, but so much fun at the same time, because you can give it a voice from that commercial perspective. And it doesn't need to be, oh, look at the pretty kitchen or look at the it's not about that. Is, what's the traffic that comes through this place? What do you expect as an investor to get back from this property? Interviewing businesses around, buildings that you're in, or potential tenants within a building if it's an occupied building. So I think it's there. The potential is absolutely there, and there's a missed opportunity for those that are not doing it. And just because it's commercial and not residential doesn't mean it doesn't have to be there.
So what, in your opinion, makes a property, a business, a location gram-worthy? I was going to say IG worthy, but I heard you throwing around the gram, so I thought I'd try to be cool and know what I'm talking about. Is that a word? Is that a Jenniferism?
Jenniferism. Listen, it doesn't need to be anything special. I think you have the ability to finding something special for every single place that you have. And that's the challenge, when you list a commercial property. And we did a lot of retail and office space. That was more our cup of tea. So it was, okay, what's important about this location? Is it the traffic? Is there walking traffic or not? Is it close to airport? So, I mean, that at the end of the day, I think is finding, what makes that property special and putting it out there. When I hear your episodes, how you guys are able to give really great service to your client because you know exactly what makes them tick and you know exactly what their needs are. Well, guess what? Those needs can be on social without violating, obviously, confidentiality or anything else that you need to keep in mind. But I think all of it is grammable, and it's storytelling at the end of the day.
Let's dive into that, but I did want to tell you that. And sometimes it's something like an oddity or something that you find that just makes you giggle or just shocks you. I was, this is years ago, showing a medical office building, and, there was one side of the building had a bunch of doctors' practices of, the whole gamut of specialists. The other side was actually a medical training school. Right. So we walk into a room, and there is what looks like a bunch of dead bodies on the floor. But what they were is like, this was the storage room for all the dummies that were being used for CPR training and for all these other stuff. But they were just laying around. So I took a picture of that room because, of course, you're never going to walk into a room like that. I was like, hey, look at what I found while I was showing a building. So sometimes it's those little curiosities. But, as you were moving into a year of leadership as chairman of the board, you shared with all of the leaders a book which is about branding. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, because I think that when we read that book, that shifted our perspective. And what I loved about it is that the ideas in that book you can utilize for any marketing that you're doing, any way in which you're thinking of promoting the product, promoting yourself, and and this idea of you as a broker not being the hero, but you're the one that helps the hero accomplish their goal, which is, in this case, could be your client, it could be somebody else. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that will be valuable to the people listening.
You know what? That book to me was such an aha moment in marketing. And I had been doing this for a bit, and that's why I wanted to share it, because it's so important. So it's Donald Miller, and it's Building a Story Brand is the name of the book. And the whole premise of it is that we as agents, we like to put our photo on our business cards and look at me, and I have all these designations, and I'm a top producer and I sold all these things. And then you don't realize that it's not about you at all, which goes back to what we were talking before and identifying different things. But what makes this one special, and hopefully it can resonate to more people, is that when you identify that the customer is the hero of the story, and you're just the guide, you're helping them get to their goal of purchase or sale or whatever that is. And your job, there's going to be obstacles throughout the way. The villain, is it mortgage rates? Is it lack of inventory? Is it whatever it is? So those are the obstacles. And you're helping that hero get through the obstacles and get to the end of the story, which is ultimately that sale or purchase or rent or whatever it is that you're doing. So that to me was like, wait a minute. So it's not about me. So I've been right along, I've been doing it intuitively, but it's not about me at all. And then you start featuring things differently. So I'll give you an example. We sold it was a freestanding building on Bird Road. The upstairs had training and a Weight Watchers that was there for years. It was Weight Watchers headquarters for many, many years. And downstairs was like a 5,000 square foot retail space. So that space had, and I managed this building for 15 years. So that building had a print shop, a party supply, mattress place, you name it. I mean, all kinds of businesses went through it. And so when we put it on the market for sale, I don't know what kind of business was there, but what I did is that I took photos of that retail space, and then with the help of Box Brownie, which is one of my favorite things, it was a digital staging. I did different uses for this space, right? So that's where you can get creative. What can go in this space? And I did like 4 or 5 that I would market. These are the possibilities that this space has. And I would get contacted by the end user, by someone that wanted to rent, by the investor. It ended up, if you could drive by it today, the person that bought it was an end user for that retail, and it's a cannabis store. So they redid the facade and everything like that. So at the end of the day, and I didn't think of cannabis. That one was not one of the uses I thought of when I was trying to be creative for that space. But again, we're talking about creativity. We're talking about who is the end user, who is the hero at the end, which could be the occupant of the building. Identifying what you do really well. Could this building be an end user, or is it going to be an investor? Is that a better use of the space? When we sell medical, usually end user buying a single freestanding building makes more sense. So those are the little things. You need to analyze your property. And when you analyze, you find aha moments that you can use for marketing and being creative.
That's fantastic. That's phenomenal. So it's really interesting because over the last 19 years of you being involved in this, platforms, I think there's been a lot of changes, because, at first it was really the word. It started with the word, meaning that, we were typing 140 characters in Twitter. The blogs became a really, really powerful way of communicating with consumers and engaging with an audience. Your blog is historic, right? It's incredible. And then we started to move into video, right? When it was better to compress video and be able to put it out there. And then we've kind of moved a little bit to a degree to an audio, right, level because of the success of podcasts and things like that. People are able to turn it on anywhere they go. The success of audiobooks, all those things, And now I think we have obviously AI to contend with, but where do you see the future of interacting with social networks and how where do we go from here? Is it going to be an amalgam of all those things? What are your thoughts on that?
Under hashtag forward thinking.
Under hashtag forward thinking, exactly.
Not an easy one to answer. I think, if you look at Twitter alone, like the evolution of Twitter, the 140 characters, and it was just so conversational at the very, very beginning, and you can just have long conversations. People would walk into your conversation, and then it was so organic and so beautiful. And then all of a sudden news channels took it over, and it's Twitter right now is more of a news communication type of thing. What has happened with LinkedIn? LinkedIn was your resume. Yeah, that was it. It was known as your professional resume. And the fact that now you're having powerful conversations at another level. Like my favorite right now has to be LinkedIn, which is crazy because it's not visual. What good platforms do is that they evolve to include what their audience, now the audience is us now, it needs. So they have been able to incorporate video and visuals. So that's the evolution of LinkedIn that you have to go, wow, that is fantastic. And what has been the evolution of Instagram? Like when Instagram was seen like Snapchat being positive because messages disappear, or TikTok, then they incorporated Reels. So any of these things that you're seeing in platforms being incorporated according to the way that we are communicating as humans. But ultimately, if you look at all the changes, the ones that do well are the ones that have authentic engagement. Okay, so the reason podcasts are doing well is because we're having a conversation right now. So anyone that's listening is going to see, hey, these guys are having, it's not pre-scripted. I don't know what you guys are going to ask me, so everything's going to be very, very authentic. So I see anything that's created from now on that keeps that authenticity aspect of it. You can tell when there's a bot talking to you. You can tell when AI writes a post. And funny enough, AI, the changes from ChatGPT from when it came out, November of last year to now, is huge. I could tell AI, write in Ines's voice to describe this photo, and then I would tweak it a little bit. It sounded great. Now I write it, and I actually give it a prompt. Don't make it sound like ChatGPT. And that's no longer working, because you're training that model and the information that's going in now is not coming out the way that you want. So again, I think to answer your question, because I think I went off on a tangent, is authenticity. Where are we going? I mean, can we create something new? We have voice, we have visual, we have video. We incorporate all three, podcasts with videos and voice. So I think it's going to be, look at what happened with Clubhouse. It was like so exciting, and that's just audio.
Is Clubhouse still around?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
Well, because there are things that, to your point, there's stuff that starts out really, really strong. And then people try it and test it, and then it kind of fades. And the ones that I've seen, to your point, that have been consistent, well, Facebook, which pretty much started it, is still around. LinkedIn, again, old school, still around, different use, different iteration. Twitter, now X. And by the way, for commercial real estate, Twitter is where deals get done. And that's where the landlords are. That's where the investors are. So if that's your target, to your point, Twitter and now X, is a great place to be. And The Real Deal just did an article on a bunch of our friends who happen to be on hashtag retwit, RETWIT, including Beth Azor and Bob Nicole and the strip mall guy. But which ones do you think have longevity and are here to stay? You know, there's all this issue going on with TikTok, thank you. Obviously, I don't use TikTok. I don't use Snapchat. But with me, it's LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Those are my three because I think you can't be everywhere. But which ones do you see having longevity? And do you see anything interesting coming up outside of AI?
You know what? It's funny. Like, if we would have had this conversation 3 years ago and said that Facebook would have gone down the way that it did, we would have not believed ourselves, right? So I can say, like, I've used Twitter in so many different ways. I mean, my Twitter handle is Ines. I mean, a 4-letter word. I mean, that just tells you how long I've been in there. I come in and out of Twitter and you know, there's South American countries that only communicate through Twitter, by the way. So it's just nuts. And then you see things like WhatsApp, you know, which is a messaging app. I see tons. I mean, WhatsApp is doing something super, super creative, you know, and you know, that may be the next thing. Who knows? Obviously, when Elon Musk buys Twitter, and a lot of people get turned off by what was happening and the charging and the hashtag. I mean, it's just crazy. Then Threads came out of Instagram. Right. So that was.
Tell us a little bit about Threads, because I joined up and then I quickly dropped it because I was like,
I was so excited with Threads because I was a little angry at what was happening with Twitter. So, and at the end of the day, you're going to do well in any platform when you spend the time, you know. So just having a profile in a platform is not enough. You know, just having a profile and posting content is not enough. Again, there's an engagement aspect of whatever platform. So I love to hear that you concentrate on 3, and that has to be hard enough. You know, if I was telling someone that's starting off with social media right now and feels intimidated, start with 1, period. Start with 1 and do it well. You know, yeah, create your profile so you can have your brand in other places, but just concentrate in 1. Threads, I think people like me that just, I was tired of what was happening in Twitter, jumped in Threads. And the beauty of Threads is that since it's linked with Instagram, because it's owned by Instagram and Facebook, you can get alerts from there, you know, and you can communicate and you can share your content in the different places. So it has great traction. I don't think it has reached the traction that they wanted in the time that they wanted to. So, you know, and like anything else, sometimes they just disappear, you know, and they're lost. I think it's important to point out also is, you know, age groups, you know, who's using what. And I can tell you, you know, that Gen Zs are not using Facebook at all. Millennials did not use Facebook at all. So you also have to go there. If that becomes your audience, you need to go where your audience is. And so Snapchat is where Zers are, and that's it. You know, it's Snapchat. And Instagram. They do some Instagramming as well. So it's about looking at who's there and how you can get some ROI from the people that are using that particular platform and why. And I love hearing that Twitter is big and commercial and a lot of deals are happening there. But you know what it is the hashtag at the end of the day. Because if you have an account with not that many followers, you know, how do you get the eyes on what you're trying to say? So you have to get into conversations by the hashtag, and within that conversation, then learn how to use the hashtag so people pay attention to whatever you're posting. And that's fun, finding out that back end thing of hashtags.
So I just want to reiterate what you said, because I think that last little bit brought up kind of ties it all together, right? You've said that you need to know who your audience is, so identify your audience. If you're just getting started, focus on one, and the audience is not the same across social media. So LinkedIn was always the professional one versus the personal one.
Add one more to that list, which is authenticity rules. That's the most important thing.
Authenticity rules on all of them, right?
On all of them,
right. Authenticity
Correct.
rules on all of them. So which ones are you using the most, or because you're everywhere, are you using different ones to speak to your different audiences? For example, your leadership audience is different from your buyer or seller audience.
So I discovered that the tech industry is on LinkedIn, right? So being involved with Reach and that whole prop tech, fintech world, I realized in one of the IOI summits that all the tech.
Okay, wait a second. We're demystifying real estate, and you just threw out a bunch of stuff. Reach is NAR's tech investment company, right? So you want to explain IOI?
So Reach puts together, so it's Second Century Ventures is a for-profit arm of NAR, is the venture capital arm of NAR. And they have Reach is an accelerator for prop tech. And it has to be prop tech and fintech. And not only are they in the United States, it's Australia, Canada, England. They just opened Latin America, Israel. That's it. I got the 5. And most of these companies end up in the US. So it's really, really exciting. What's beautiful about Reach and the accelerator is that they put together an annual conference called the IOI Summit, and they change the location all the time. Within this IOI Summit, it's all about technology, prop tech, fintech, how it affects the real estate world at all levels, commercial, residential, at all levels. And they have a pitch battle. And that pitch battle is so much fun. It's usually 12 companies that have a 4-minute pitch. And they have 4 minutes to speak, mics get cut off, and there's judges. There's usually 4 judges in different verticals of the real estate industry, and then they critique the companies, and then there's a winner. So I've had the pleasure of being the MC for 2 of those. And so much fun. You guys know that I light up when it comes to technology. So that's been absolutely amazing. Well,
thanks for demystifying that.
No problem.
Now go back to your LinkedIn. That LinkedIn that you found out that tech was on LinkedIn. Sorry, we forget all the time. And then I'm like, okay, we just totally mystified commercial.
What is that? I just said like 3 things that are just like, what? So techies, all these tech founders and new companies are on LinkedIn. This is how they communicate. And so when I discovered this a couple of years back, I was like, whoa, I haven't been utilizing LinkedIn like I should be. So I started using it a lot more. And I've found a new world of beauty with LinkedIn. But I think it's not that it's changed. It's me. It's the user experience at the end of the day. You know, I wasn't using it to its full capability. So right now I am, and I'm having a blast with it and growing my audience in there. So I would tell you, I love LinkedIn. I will continue doing Instagram my way because, I love photography, and I love our city. Miami is just absolutely amazing. And I love
it's so gram-worthy.
Absolutely. And which posts of mine get the most traffic? I try to do it once or twice a year. I'll do Miami's most selfie spots or Instagrammable spots. And so I give people different ideas of where to go and take selfies. And so I love Instagram. It is what it is. It's a really beautiful way of featuring our beautiful Miami. And then I always keep my eye out for, let me test and play around with different platforms just to see what they are and seeing if it's worth for me to spend a little bit more time. But those are the 2. I can tell you, I post, I think leadership-wise, Facebook, people are for leadership. It's crazy. Not so much my audience that's buying, because obviously it is my audience, but it's a different audience. It's not the one that makes me money. It's the one that's listening to anything intellectual or academic, I have to say.
Interesting.
That's awesome.
And do you link your accounts? So I know there are platforms where you can put your posts and it'll feed to all of your social media sites. Do you use those, or are you more intentional with your posts based on the audience that you're getting from each of your platforms?
So I actually have a very strong opinion on that. And as you guys know, I'm not very good about having strong opinions. I think that's the worst thing you can do. Those platforms that syndicate everywhere are just not the platforms you should do. And why? Let's go back to who's in those platforms. The voice is different. So I used to teach a marketing class, and I would call them social metaphors. You know what the social metaphors, the comparison is, and they've changed a little bit. LinkedIn was your formal, you showed up, like if you're going to a party, you would show up in your tux because that was your formal representation. Twitter was the very conversational, I can go in gym clothes. Facebook was a little bit better, okay, I can show up with, jeans, but I can be informal still. And so the social metaphors are completely different for each platform. So the way that you can write the same post, so I have a beautiful photo of the Miami Tower on Instagram. I can put that photo on Instagram and the caption is going to be different. If I put it on LinkedIn, the story is going to be a little bit different. Or maybe it's about, this is going to age me because it used to be Centrus, it's now Miami Tower, and who the architect is an IMP Tower. So I can go into the details of that, or be funny about it. I can put something funny on Twitter about what could be funny about that building. So just be careful about, how you talk in different platforms, and don't post the same thing everywhere. It's being lazy at the end of the day. You're trying to be efficient, but that's not efficiency. To me, it's being lazy, because you need to think and be authentic, and you can't be authentic if you're syndicating.
Awesome. So you mentioned, and this was one of my questions, so you mentioned that sometimes you post stuff about the most, best place to take selfies or the most Instagrammable. And we didn't give you a heads up. At the end of every interview, we always have like a fun fact. So we're going to make this your fun fact. Can you share with us some of maybe your top 3 spots for selfies and your top 3 most Instagrammable spots or buildings in Miami-Dade County?
That's a tough one off the top of my head.
Yes, off the top of your head.
Thank you for the warning there, guys.
No. I want it to be fresh and authentic.
So one of my favorite selfie spots right now is at Brickell City Center. So right next to the Apple store, looking towards, what street is that? 4th? So it's just so beautiful. And at night, don't do it in the daytime. It needs to be a nighttime photo. Just make sure that your selfie at least lights up your face or whatever needs to happen there, because the view of the street behind you with the lights and the buildings and the color and the art on the buildings is so fantastic. I would say South Point Park, in the pier. So you have the pier sign right in front of you with the beautiful blue water, and depending on the angle you'll have Fisher Island behind you, or you'll have the Intracoastal Waterways. So that's another one. And just the sign frames you beautiful, and that just comes out like a great selfie spot. Again, be really good about how never, like in that selfie, you got to feature the back. So you have to make sure you're doing it correctly. And the lesson for that Jennifer laughs is she's taking a selfie. And for those of you listening, those people that take a selfie and their face ends up really little on the bottom of the screen, and there's like no composition. There's a lot of white space on top of their head. I was like, no, like no white space, like center your face, or do the rule of thirds on the photo. Like there's ways of taking these selfies that is a really great way. Third.
Yeah, Jennifer.
No, our selfie ends up with half of my face, like folded over half of her face. No white spot anywhere, full on blow up. You can see our pores. Yeah.
We had so much fun. When you mentioned that, I still remember. And I would tell you, Prado entrance in the Gables. And this is one that not a lot of people, you see a lot of quinces being taking photos there and pre-wedding photos or whatever, but selfie spot with the pergola and the brick and the greenery behind you is a really cool space to take a selfie. And then obviously every shopping center now has that selfie wall or whatever it is that you find. Wynwood, when it comes to Instagrammable places, the murals from the most fantastic artists are there. And I encourage you guys to take a look. Like when you see a beautiful wall, take a look at one of the corners. It'll have a signature. Take a photo of the signature and do a little research on who the artist is. And then find out, because that's always about, learn a little bit about what the photo behind you is. And that's amazing. There's the A-Hole Snips Glue is one of my favorites. There's a lot of really great artists that are local that are in Wynwood. 1111 Lincoln Road has to be my favorite building in Miami. When they were building it, remember how controversial it was? A concrete parking lot. Like, why the hell are we building a concrete parking lot that costs that amount of money? That's a Herzog and de Meuron building. And I can sit there. Oh my God, Rick is so patient with me. I'll say, I'm going to take off and spend a couple of hours at 1111 Lincoln. And I go in the stairway and it's like you're in an Escher painting. From the stairway, every angle of that building is just so incredible. Every detail they put into it, from the neon to the car stops, to the signage, it just blows my mind. And I'm missing one other Instagrammable, Pam, another Herzog and de Meuron. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Pam, the Perez Art Museum, Miami. The angles in here are there's no bad photo you can take there. And if you walk over to the park, there's art in public spaces in there as well. So you can take some beautiful photos of greenery, the bay, artists. It's just a cool place. You see, I came up with.
Yeah. See, I knew you would. I had no doubt, which is why I felt perfectly fine. I knew you would handle it extremely well. Let me, real quick, I know we're wrapping up, but you mentioned something else that I thought was interesting. And you said when you take the selfie, something about the rule of three. Real quick.
So,
rule of three for photography.
So the rule of thirds, it's proportions, right? So we have a tendency to put ourselves in the center of the photo. And when we're featuring more than just ourselves and there's a beautiful background, you have to put yourself on the side. So it's how much to the side you put. So you separate if you're in a square, you separate it in three. So imagine you have a square and you do 2 vertical lines. So now you have 3 blank spaces. And you put yourself in one of the lines on either side. If it's a rectangle, same thing. Separate it in 2. You're going to put 2 vertical lines that are equally spaced. So now you have 3 spaces, and you belong on top of that line in either side, left or right. So that way you're featuring not just you, but the background and the scenery behind you. So anytime you have a focus, you're focusing on an item that you're taking a photo of, stop taking it in the center. Move your camera a little bit to the side. It may not be perfect, but the composition will come out 10 times better.
Awesome. Thank you. Fernando, do you have now it's remembering all that stuff. Next time I'm taking a selfie, she said to draw a line. Am I on the line? It'll still end up being a close-up.
Jennifer, I love when you said, there was one time that you came up to me and you said, yeah, I'm taking a photo and I'm trying to like be Ines when I'm taking the photo. And I went, oh my God, that is so funny.
Yeah, I do. I look at it and I try to channel. Yes, exactly. WWID. And so I try to get down and I look at it and then I take it and I'm like, yeah, hers would be so much better.
I love it.
So, Fernando, your fun fact.
So one of the things that I love about your leadership is that you're always looking at things from not what they are, but what they, what does the data really say? Are we looking forward? A big part is sometimes the media gets the wrong information about the market, and we are here to educate them on that. So I found this data and I thought you would love it. This is really interesting. So compare to the 2006 housing boom, home prices are currently 71% higher. However, after accounting for inflation, home prices are just 10% higher. Though of slightly different, if you think about it from a different perspective, nominal home prices are exactly double what they were in 2004. That works out to a compound annual growth rate of 3.6%. So even though there's been all this news, right, that housing prices went crazy during COVID, over the long run, price increases have been rather pedestrian. When you look at it from a wider lens and a longer, time period. So I
think that's super interesting because historically they've always said that home appreciation is 3 to 5%.
Right. Correct.
So your numbers totally match that. Awesome. So my fun fact, since this is all about Instagram and you were wondering what that had to do with commercial real estate and why were we being so specific, and this came up because we were on a trip and we went to 4 or 5 restaurants and we all have pictures in these restaurants of an Instagrammable wall, or what they call food porn, where everyone's always taking picture of the food. So if the food's not good, there'll be a really great Instagrammable wall. And we're like, ooh, maybe some restaurants are known better for their Instagrammableness or their gram-worthiness versus their food. So according to Yelp, the top 5 Instagram restaurants in Miami are Carbone Miami, Serena, I'm going to butcher this name, but Bashur,
yeah.
Chica, and the Tipsy Flamingo. And I am very sad to say I haven't been to a single one.
Oh, my God.
How about you? I know Ines has, because she always has Friday night pictures or weekend pictures. Have you been to any of those?
Chica, Carbone, what were the other 3?
Bashur and Tipsy Flamingo. I need to go to Tipsy Flamingo.
I haven't been to Tipsy Flamingo. That's the one that I haven't been. So I'm writing it down.
I think you would love the build out on Bashur. It's architecturally significant how they did the build out. It's really a beautiful restaurant. I haven't eaten there, but I've seen the restaurant and I walked in and it's just gorgeous what they did. And it was the same designers as the Plaza in Coral Gables. They did the build out in there. So it really is, there's a really interesting, artistic point of view that goes throughout. So what I think that means is that the 3 of us, the 4 of us, we got to include Rick. We got to go to Bashur and grab some grub.
And Tipsy Flamingo.
And there you go. Just by the name itself.
Just the name.
I will say this. Being that we do a lot of food and beverage, transactions, I think that we are at a point of inflection where we're seeing some restaurants that are creating these Instagrammable selfie picture areas, and they're lacking in authenticity because they feel like we're forced to do it, but it's not really in keeping with our brand or what we're trying to convey with our food. And unfortunately, I've been to places where the food is lackluster, but the design is, oh my God, they've done this over the top thing. And I think people ultimately need to understand that. To your point about the story brand book and all that stuff, that you need to really understand that when you're going to create this, it needs to be authentic to what it is that you're trying to convey to the marketplace. So
I agree, and I think that a lot of the Instagram worthiness is coming from the idea of experiential retail, right? Where where it's all about the experience and everything. But I want every business to remember that at the end of the day, it's about the quality of the product and the customer service. Because to your point, going to a restaurant that has beautiful decor might end up in my pictures, but if the food and the service is horrible, I can guarantee you I'm not going to be posting. Yeah. So, or I'll be posting negative, which means I won't be posting because I never post negative.
I can tell you 100 restaurants in Miami.
Right. And so I think that's the point that you always have to remember. Keep the customer in mind, no matter what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And I want all of our listeners to go out there, apply just one of the gazillion nuggets that Ines shared with us today on your social media, and let us know how it goes.
Well, Ines, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on our podcast. Thank you very, very much. We love you and we appreciate you.
Yeah, and the honor and privilege was all mine. Thank you for having me. You guys I love your podcast. What you guys are doing is absolutely amazing, and you are demystifying, and you're making things sound easy and great. And thank you for everything that you guys do, because you're both powerhouses, and I am honored to have you as friends. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us.